Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 41 of the Pursuit of Love podcast. My name is Steve Clayton. I'm here with my co-hosts Darcy J. Smythe and Matt Gall. This episode is going to be, I'm going to call it a monster. We've got the legend that is Nat Hodges back in round two. And this man, if you've listened to episode one, you'll know that the sheer depth that this man can go to whilst still being able to be articulate. It's a rare gift. This man
Thanks, mate.
knows how to label things like no other man I've ever met. And I want to talk some juicy topics today. So if you are into the podcast, if you're into the pursuit of love, which is talking to interesting people who are really pursuing the things that they love to do every day, this could be one where you need to go get your dog and you need to go for a 2-hour walk because this is going to be sick. Nat, how you doing, bro?
Good, mate. How are you? Thanks for having me back.
I've been pumped. I've literally done nothing other than look forward to this today. I've done nothing, so it's going to be good.
You're too sweet and too kind.
Yeah, love you, bro. But yeah, Darcy's back in. Mats, how we doing, boys?
Very well, man. Very pumped for this as well. Very pumped as well. After the first episode, I think we pretty much left the first episode at the point of, oh boy, we need to have an episode 2. Like it was like the can of worms got opened and then we had to cut it short. And now we're peering back into that can as we speak.
And lots has changed since that chat. When was that chat?
When was that exactly? Yeah.
I can pull it up.
I'm going to say 3 or 4 months ago.
Yeah.
Was it
pull it up.
craziness or was it?
It was pre-craziness.
Was it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rightio. There you go. Okay.
So what's news, Nat? What's been happening over the last 3 to 4 months since everything went crazy?
We're looking at November last year.
Wow. Okay.
What?
Yeah.
Right. That would have been post sales game.
Yes.
Yeah. That's when it was. Okay. Since November last year. Right.
Before the one that you played, though. Because that was February this year.
Yeah. Okay, what's changed? Mate, honestly, not much. I'm doing a lot of the same thing. Bunch of different people. My platform's up and running now, which is really cool to see. It's doing its thing. That's about it, man. Just having really, really good discussions with people and watching some really new things emerge out of the chaos. So, my days are super stimulating. A new type of kind of person will be the next sort of phase of leader in my eyes anyway. Yeah. So I'm just a new type of almost like a prototype personality has been really sort of successful through these last few months, and they've got really common themes. So that's what I've been seeing. What about you guys?
No, bro, go on. Like, you can't just drop it like that and be like, anyway, bro, so what have you been doing? Oh, I've just been drinking cups of tea and...
Yeah. We're just a couple of rounds of golf. But anyway, you were saying something about leadership?
Prototype?
Yeah.
So what are these themes you've
warehouses
been...
in China, stock markets?
Yeah. So what have you been thinking? Because I've got a couple of juicy topics. I've got 2 in mind that I've been thinking about for a long time now. By a long time, I mean like maybe a couple of months. Because I've been getting into the habit of just walking every afternoon.
Mate, I don't trust a man who can't go for a walk. So
yeah, I walk for an hour every... There it is. Put that on my LinkedIn profile.
There are two types of people. There are 2 types of people you should not trust in this world. 1, people who can't go for a walk, and 2, people who don't like Seinfeld.
Yeah, well, there you go. Exactly.
Yeah. That second one's a bit off, bro. That's pretty.
Yeah, but I've never trusted you, bro. So it's
but I've learned how to walk, though. It's the best. I go for it's about an hour walk. It's really, really hilly where I live. Beautiful sunsets. Like on a clear day, you can see like hundreds of kilometers. It's beautiful, but just thinking time, right? And so there's been a couple of topics that I think we're all sensing that I want to go into, and maybe it links back to your prototyping and the people that have done really well through this time.
Yep.
Albeit maybe a little bit different definition of well, maybe, BC before COVID, it was like earning heaps of bank.
BC.
But maybe well now is like spending time with your family, growing something, and going for a walk. That's my well.
Yeah.
Anyway,
nice.
but I've been sensing these couple of things, but I haven't heard anyone talk about it. But I think we're all sensing it. It's either that or I've just lost my mind. So anyway.
Either one will be fun. So
the first one is the concept of this crazy time compression. Like time has distorted in ways I've never really experienced. It's almost like going back to when you're a 7-year-old kid. And you know how sometimes the 6-week, 7-week holidays of, Christmas school holidays seem to turn into like weird 3-month bits for certain weeks and then nothing at other times. You know what I mean? This weird bending of time. That's one thing I think we've all sensed. Like, i.e., November last year we chatted, and literally, if I had to write an exam, be like, when did we chat? I'd be like, maybe like 3 or 4 months ago or something. A couple of weeks ago. I don't know. That's crazy. Anyway, that's one. And then the second thing is, it's appeared that this mess, whatever we're in, this experience we're all in together, has made people more of themselves. I.e., there's been certain people that have flourished and have been creative and really like tapped into other places. And that was always kind of there in them, but it seemed to really draw that out of them at a higher level. Or if other people have, had a few little weak spots, whether that's in their health or in their business or in their model or in their thinking or in their way of the world, seeing the world, that's also been amplified. You know what I mean? So yeah, they're the two things I want to talk about, but I reckon prototyping these themes, maybe you can take that whole big mess and give us some good stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's start with what your second thread, Steve, of the seeing people flourish. What we had, a good way to look at it, and you guys have heard me talk about this before, and it's because it's one of the kind of a core principle I like to follow, is a lot of people perceived this as a giant error, right? So a lot of people had a presumption like there's a real catastrophic error, something bad has happened, and we've got to either adjust to this or figure it out or solve the problem. We've got this crazy economic stuff going on, and people are really fearful, and there's been an error. Surely this kind of climate that we're all feeling has got to be from some sort of catastrophic error. I'm not so convinced. It was an error. So if we look at this from a psychological point of view, if there's an error in your perception, then you'll keep being stung by it. And it will simply be like an anomaly. You'll feel anomalies happen and you'll be like, oh, why isn't that working? Or why am I not getting along with that person? So from a psychological point of view, if you've got ambivalence and error, then you're on the verge of a shift anyway, because you can't keep running into error continuously. So that old what's that saying? Doing the same thing over and over. What's that one?
Yeah, definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result or whatever.
I think that's silly. I actually think that's stupid. Doing the same thing over and over is the definition of human nature. So it's not at all. So this kind of error that we felt in whatever context.
Would suggest though, Nat, like that concept though is that doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting a different result is insanity. Do you think humans do that? Do you think it's natural for humans to do the same thing over and over?
Yeah, we need
and expect a different result.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, we need to do that to collapse.
Got it.
Yeah.
So otherwise, you need to move into insanity in order to grow.
Totally. Yeah, real growth.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure. And so I think what you, to pull on your kind of thread, Steve, was that people were feeling an error. And if you've heard me say it before, but error is indistinguishable from progress. And so some people had this giant boot of progress, and other people kind of clung on to doing the same thing. No, I'm just going to try and do the same thing through this. It's like everyone experienced a global Piagetian stage transfer. It's when your perception just gets so rocked and rattled that if you allow it to happen, what comes in is the new, is an updated perception that doesn't have that error anymore, that accounts for those anomalies, that accounts for those dangers, and you get more depth. So yeah, and some people were on the verge of it anyway, and I think that's just where they've flourished. And I think other people tried to cling on to some kind of quote unquote normality, which simply just means I'm going to try and cling on to consistency because I don't know how to handle change. Which is
well said.
Yeah. That's where I think.
Can you speak to that a bit, Nat? You mentioned moving into insanity.
Mm-hmm.
Can you go a little bit deeper on that? Because I felt like that was a bit breezed over, but that one sentence alone has, we've spoken about that in depth quite a bit recently, Nat. But for a lot of people, if they just heard that, they'd be like, "Whoa, what was that depth in insanity growth? How does that sort of all come together?"
There's two elements of control here. If you want to, and I'll start again. I'll go a little bit further than that. I might need to build a bit of a story here, but some people listening to this, you'll be in a stage of life where you need to actually take more responsibility, take more control. So I'll caveat what I'm saying here is that for some people, you're still in identity building stage where you'll need to figure out your schedules, figure out your timelines, train your disagreeableness, train to down-regulate your neuroticism, train your discipline by building something solid. Everyone needs to build something solid that they can rely on. But if you keep going further than that, that not only stops working, but it becomes unhealthy. So essentially, we build an entire self structure to eventually just let it go. And in the letting go-ness is where you can let chaos order you instead of you trying to order chaos.
And what's the benefit to that?
Growth, really simply. That's why I think, Stephen, probably what you've noticed is if people were in an identity building early stages of their development, this is a giant, disruption, a giant catastrophe. Because I was doing so well, I had so much progress. I was, and then for someone else who needed a good snow globe moment, where they just get shaken up like a snow globe, would have been perfect.
Which we did see a big spectrum of.
Massively.
Yeah.
Massively. And even, it's just, again, back to my kind of opening statement was that the people who really let go and let something else order them for a while, they got amazing, amazing results.
Do you have examples? One of the main ones I think of is I was listening to a Joe Rogan podcast the other day, and they were talking about the power of a mental breakdown and how it can actually be something that you, upon building back up from, turned out to be one of the best things that happens to people. But in the modern world that we live in, you see someone mentally breaking down. It's like they're broken, they're wrecked, they're going to end up in a loony bin, they're done forever, and it becomes untrustworthy and unstable.
Yeah.
But Joe Rogan's a big supporter of realizing that when things like that happen, it's an ultimate ego stripper. It's like you thought you were so perfect, but really you're so incredibly fragile. It was time for you to learn that.
Oh my God, they're so fragile. Yeah, so fragile.
Yes, and the perfect example, they used a picture of remember when Britney Spears shaved her head and went crazy? And everyone was like, did you hear Britney Spears has completely lost her mind? It's like, no, she hasn't. She's gaining it back because for her entire life, she was told she had to be this particular person. And all of a sudden, the software in her mind just couldn't take it any longer.
Yeah.
Is that sort of the example, just to sort of paint a picture in our minds, is that the sort of example we're looking at here? Or is that a normal sort of growth trend? Or
Well, I think why this conversation is so challenging for people is we don't really realize that we're crossing into two different, or sometimes even three different world spaces. And by a world space, I mean an experience that you can have that has distinguishable reference, that when you talk about it with someone else, they have the same reference, reference, RENTS, not reference. So what, we're crossing over context accidentally. So we're actually making a language mistake, and people don't really realize it. And the language mistake is that, someone's having an interpersonal experience, a personal experience to them, which is in the first person world space. It's me or I'm having this experience. But then as soon as you bring someone else in to judge them or critique them against a norm, they're having a second person conversation or relation. So we jump from a first-person experience to a second-person relation. And the moment you have a second person there, it invites a moral conversation. What's the wrong or right thing to do here? How do we help this person or aid this person? It's like, get out of their world space. Get out of it. They're having a first-person experience. They know how to do this. Otherwise, they wouldn't have put themselves there. So we break language rules accident, and then then we go, oh yeah, but based on a societal norm, they're sick or they're broken. Well, that's a third-person world space of out there. And so you've got these these world spaces that are being blended, and that's why people are completely chaotic. They don't really know who they are or what they are, and the trying to get it right is just almost impossible.
Oh, it is impossible. I wouldn't even call it even almost.
Yeah,
it doesn't
right.
exist. So you touched on something there that I think a lot of listeners would like perk their ears up to, or be like, hang on, there's a challenge there. I have my sort of perspective. I don't think everyone else does, but you mentioned they wouldn't be there if they didn't put themselves there.
Yeah.
Now this is when I know a lot of people would have said, you're telling me I put myself into this depression, or I put myself into this schizophrenia. I put myself. Is that what you're saying? Now,
yeah.
Is that what you're saying? Like, how does that sort of work?
It's a really, really good pickup. My definition of self probably needs to be explained. So my definition of self is all of you in past, present, and what will be is what I call self.
Sure.
So
okay.
In that realm, you've put yourself there. From a relative self, now you're probably clinging and grasping and dying and crawling and wanting it to be all over. But yeah, that's the relative self.
Gotcha. Yeah, good clear up.
Really, good pickup.
Really important clear up there, I think.
Yeah. Because that would be the solution for everything. Well, you put yourself there, so figure it out. Bye bye.
Yeah. See you, bye. Yeah.
So yeah, what that second person does, I think my role is what I do is just to help people have a better first person experience, not a teacher student second person experience.
Yeah. Okay.
And that seems to be the environment.
Oh, go ahead, Steve.
That seems to be the environment. What the experience has been for people, though, is one of heightened. Well, hopefully, it seems to be the people that have done well out of this have had heightened self-awareness. They've and it's been, man, like for me, like to put it more simply, it was just like, man, my priorities were so out of whack. Like, and how did I think that was normal? Like, why, like that's, it's almost like it was a really stark mirror. Well, that's how I viewed it. It's like, okay, we're going to strip everything back, and all you're going to be left with is naked. You're just going to be naked in front of it. And you just have to look at it. You just have to look at it, what it is.
Drink it in.
And the people that have been okay with that process seem to be the ones flourishing.
Yeah, you got it.
But you still got those people that are just clinging, and I don't know. It's not like they've even seen it. Is that whole prototype leader thing that you're talking about before?
Totally, Steve, yeah. It's invited an artful way of life, not a scientific way of life. Mm-hmm. So, again, that the art of living, it's really invited. It's got an opportunity to bring that back into play, I suppose, because what I was saying before about that kind of first person experience, which is just you, second person experience, which is thinking, in relationship to something, and then third person experience, I have a relationship, and then there's a world of objects or things out there. They're basically your three basic world spaces, and it really invited the artful way of life, and the artful way of life is a first person experience. That's what art is. Art is first person. It's an experience. It's not scientific, right? It's not a relationship. It's an experience. So it invited people right back into their core experience. And a lot of people saw their core experience as quite fragile and broken, which is perfect. Because then anything you build from that is going to be fragile and imperfect, but you think it's solid and great.
Have you noticed that people are with that? I don't know if you I like that. I get that, the whole artful thing. But there's also this other tangent that what I'm seeing is like there's a heightened sense of community. There's a heightened sense of neighborhood. There's a heightened sense of small. And it's actually genuine,
Mm-hmm. Totally, man. I was driving around here, and like people were leaning over fences, and it was like a street party. Like I remember playing like street cricket when I was younger, and that was fun. neighbors actually spoke to each other.
Yeah.
The dog park down here is just nuts. Like, it's nuts now, and just dogs and people everywhere, and it's great. I think it's great.
Yeah. Like, so how does that come into the first, second, third self? Because I'm loving it. Like, I'm walking, like I said, walk every afternoon. You find your little community of 5 p.m. walkers, and you're like, g'day, you really smile and you talk, and
totally.
you get to know their
G'day,
dogs.
Margaret. G'day, Graham.
You get to know their dog's name after a while. You're just like, this is pretty good, man. Like, yeah, but how does that come together as well? So
so
does that integrate, or is that a separate thing altogether?
No, that was what we actually call the fourth space in that, Steve, which is society. So if you have the self or I, then you have the second person or two people having a relationship, which is essentially thinking, because you're multiple people, but we'll get there if you want to go there. The third world space, or third person, being there's a world out there of objects, and then fourth person is there's a intersubjective story. Right? And the intersubjective story is where a bunch of people in that world space sharing the Australian story, sharing the mental story. You might share what suburb you're in story, that you share that together. Yeah, so you share an intersubjective story, which is kind of an intangible world space, but a very important one, as you can see when what happens in the world now when intersubjective stories get really intense and they want to battle another intersubjective story.
Well, it almost transcends being, like, it almost goes spiritual in that fourth space. Like, there's opposing forces. Like, it's almost, it goes beyond people then. They transform into a force. They transform into a spirit almost. And so it's weird. Like, I think we're getting conscious of that. You can have like a healthy society. You can have a healthy kind of spirit that, creates good and it multiplies itself in a good way. And then you see these other things and they come into force and attack other things. It's weird. It's like this storm that's happening where everyone's like, bro, you thought you had life figured out. You have no bloody idea. Like,
exactly.
Everyone's got a humility trip. Like, everyone's literally saying, bro, I don't even know where we're going to be in 3 months' time. And everyone's like not trying to be a hero. They're just like, we're little humans that don't know much, but we have incredible power for good and not so good. Like, it's just weird, man. It's so weird.
Yeah, you're bang on. Yeah, you're bang on. It's
What do you make of the human experience in that respect, Nat? In that we seem to be this extraordinary creature that tries to make order out of chaos, where nature just simply does not do that in any way. And it seems like we're the only species that we know of, well, in the universe, but I'll say on planet Earth, that has ever existed that has aimed to make straight lines out of a wacky universe. We've had this conversation before, but what do you think humans are? Is that a representation of a species that has evolved so far that it's bad for them? Or that we're actually so much stupider than we think because we cannot meld with nature in the way that it actually works?
Yeah, I think it's on the devolution side, not the rapid evolution side.
Go on.
Well, okay, so this is a story a friend told me. She's a client and she's brilliant. She's 37. She's the marketing manager for one of the biggest skincare companies in Australia. She's been groomed for the CEO. She's a weapon, but she had a really, really tough time with a lot of things that she was doing because she had expectations that were just not being met in the people she was hanging out with, relationships. And when I mean expectations, I mean she had such a deep care for people. Like, I mean the deep, deep, deep care that could almost never be reciprocated because of how deep she would care. And I'm talking not care as in attached care. I mean like a genuine care for living things. And it was kind of...
What a weirdo, am I right?
Right? Yeah.
What an incredible, beautiful, weird person.
She said one day, she was this story, I'll never forget it. She was sitting there one day and she's quite hungover and most likely coming down. But she was sitting there and kind of gathering herself back together. And she looked out at these palm trees and the palm trees were having a conversation. Whether they were having a verbal conversation or not, but she interpreted the relationship as a conversation. And the palm trees were, there was a lot of different people underneath the palm trees on bikes and pushing prams and stuff like that. And the palm trees is like, look at these guys. Like, they have no idea. Look at these humans. We used to have a relationship with these guys, and they've just, totally forgotten how to be. Just totally forgotten. And, my client was sitting there like, God damn, is this real? Like, what's happening here? But it was significant for her. It never really left her, the fact that these trees were relating to each other in a highly, highly evolved way. And they're just kind of upset that these humans had forgotten how to be that way. And they devolved back into a different way of being, back into essentially 5 senses, not anything extra sensory.
And you sense through the work you do that this has become apparent? Like this is something you see in people?
Yeah, I'll be massively, but I have a kind of like a secret, hidden, shameful relationship with trees for a very, very long time. Like I just hang out and talk to them for when I was younger. And even now, when there's a couple of woods around here that you can go and sit, and you can really start to understand a different type of intelligence. It's really present. It's like it's right there all the time. If you want to take a look, I suppose, but you've got to get through a lot of conditioning before you can kind of get access to that. For whatever reason, I just was open to that early. But to answer your question, Darcy, in a not so crazy way, is I don't think it's a question of what how are we different or where do we go wrong. I think it's different mediums of the same thing. It's just different mediums of the same, different presentations and mediums of the same thing.
And that same thing is?
That's a big question. Well, think about this.
Is that like a God conversation?
Yeah, is this a universal energy experience we're talking about?
Yeah, kind of, but not. Because there's, again, the controversial topic is there's more in the world at play than just energy, which again can be proven. It's not a hippy dippy thing. It's like, you set paper on fire, right? And it changes form. The energy in the fire, what's that? Chemical energy, I'm guessing. Mm-hmm. Heat energy. Yeah. Will transfer that paper into ash, but the mass of the paper is still there, just in a different form. There's more to energy at play than that, because something has to organize the change. So energy is just change. But the question is, what organizes the change? And that organizer is not energy, and it can't be temporal. It's transtemporal. It's transspatial. Mm-hmm. But it can't be energy, because it's the thing that it organizes change. So it's got to be almost more like a field. So, if ice is a good example, or icicles, like if you look, they have a beautiful form to them. It's snowflakes have a beautiful, beautiful form to them. And they're organized. It's an organized form. Energy will change that, but the question is, what organizes the change? So, yeah, it's kind of in that space, which is a little bit beyond just energy. That's kind of a first pass. It's kind of easy way to look at it.
Yeah. Yep.
It's also the humans. We've got to figure it out. Everything's just energy. It's like, oh, come on, guys.
Man, before I came to this podcast, the hardest decision I had to make was whether I wanted a ham and cheese toastie for breakfast or porridge.
And you know what? That's difficult.
Yeah, that's great. Go on, Steve.
Well, it's an interesting discussion, because you're kind of arguing, Das, that I don't know what word you used, devolved, that we haven't been able to figure out nature. But you could easily, we've done a pretty good job of figuring out nature, at least to the point of utilizing it or not letting it kill us. That's the other thing that makes us incredibly unique as a living thing on this planet, is we've done some pretty incredible things with our creativity and intelligence and, harnessing all of that sort of stuff. So I think it's too simplistic to then just push people back into we're the same as just any old
you
animal.
Can't, Steve.
You can't.
Right, you
like
can't.
we're
You can't.
so far beyond that. It's like trying to put a PhD student against a kindergarten and get them to put a coherent sentence together. You know what I mean? Like it's absurd to even try and put those two things together.
So if you think about it, Steve, on the because it's not, we can't talk about this in kind of whole truth. It's always only partial. You've got a person sitting there and they're just a kind of nature-dwelling tribal person. Their consciousness evolved for better or worse. For better or worse, it evolved. And it evolved through into, a more religious point of view having a creator. And then further down the line, it evolved into the rational kind of worldview, which is now we have. And a rational worldview is still really complex. It's still been able to hold a third-person perspective on the world of objects. The moment we reached a point where we realized there was a world of objects, we then had a giant world full of resources to use. So guess what? We made ourselves more comfortable. We made ourselves more hungry and fat and full. We made ourselves more transportation. You know what I mean? So it's not a question of if this and then that. It's a question of what did we sacrifice for our amazing growth. And that's one of the things that kind of got left behind is, we have an amazing world of growth and development and technology. But we have 5 dull senses that used to be incredible. You know what I mean? That used to be absolutely incredible. You can still see it in the world now. And it's not a big
people
broad
need to go hunting more.
Mate, and it doesn't take, it's not a broad brushstroke to realize that and go, hang on. Okay, so we've got this really incredible world of form and technology, but why is it that we're so unhappy? Like a lot of people are so unhappy. A lot of them are devoid of meaning. A lot of them have empty souls, They don't feel a connection to anything.
I think it's because we've cut out 99% of the middle. We don't understand the process of things. It's just like I press a button, I get food. I want this thing to happen.
Exactly what I mean.
Like we've completely removed the middle section, which seems to be the most rewarding part. It's the process. It's the actual experience of the thing, and that's why I made the point of like hunting. I know it's a controversial topic. I really want to get you out hunting one day, Das. Well, Das doesn't like it, but I want him to go hunting one. I want him to go hunt well, because when you do, you fill in that 99% gap in the middle, and also you as a human. I don't know if you've done much hunting or anything. I've done next to none, but you feel like you tap into this like. Different person, like when you're talking about the senses being dull and that we've made them all dumb and stupid, like when you're just honing in on an animal and you understand that this is my target and I have to be quiet and I have to listen and I have to look and I need to battle with the morality of I'm going to end this thing's life,
Totally.
It's this whole different experience, but we just go, let's go to the restaurant and order a T-bone. Like we don't even boom, they have it. We don't care about that. So it's like, it's almost like this romanticism's coming back in again of that. Let's look at all the middle. Let's look at all the bits that kind of connect it all together.
Totally. And it kind of ties into what I've seen right at the start. There's that person that I'm talking about, that kind of prototype is a connector, not connector between people, but a connector between seemingly opposing things that are starting to come together in a real way.
If we're missing the middle, which is impossible, okay, so we used to make the middle going for the hunt, and now we get the T-bone steak. We've pretty much cut out the hypothetically. We've cut out the middle of that. But you can't, it's like chopping the middle of a magnet. You're always still going to end up with a left and a right and
two magnets, in the middle. Yeah.
It's always going to happen. So I would suggest that it's not that we've cut out the middle, it's just that getting the T-bone steak has become the middle that leads us now to something greater. My question would be, what is that greater outcome that we're looking for? Because we used to just hunt food. Now hunting is sort of taken care of. So now the bigger goal is now a larger target. There's always going to be a middle.
Yeah.
Do you think that points to like the self-actualization, more of that spiritual journey? Are you suggesting we're pointing towards that?
I'm not sure. I'm really
because
not
if you
sure.
keep cutting out the middle and then transcend, it sounds like what you're suggesting is like, okay, so we used to do that, but we found a far more efficient way, which means we could free up our being to do more useful things. Like if you argue it that way, well, that means, are we on the path then to self-actualization, a spiritual quest? Because if it's cutting out the middle, what's actually important? Like, is that where you're going with it?
I'm not. Yeah, that's where I'm going, but I'm actually not sure what the bigger goal is.
I think that's. I think whether we like it or not, that's the only quest. That's what everyone's doing inadvertently. Okay, I'll solve my needs now to go on to my other needs. And if you follow it all the way to the top, you'll reach a unity need. And this is again part of. I wouldn't say a lot of what I'm doing.
Define unity need.
To stop being separate parts and be one whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've got my job and I've got my kids and I do this thing and I do this for fun. It'll all end up being a need of unification or wholeness.
And how far do you stretch that wholeness?
It can go, well, theoretically forever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's just when subject becomes object of the next. Oh, when object becomes subject of the next higher. Let me say it again. When object becomes subject of the next higher. Have I got that around the right way, Das?
Yeah, you do. That's right.
Yeah, sweet.
Yeah.
And if you follow that can theoretically go on forever. But
the example of that is you master words, so you move on to sentences. You master sentences, so you move on to paragraphs. You master paragraphs, so you move on to chapters. But you can't have a whole chapter without the words that were 4 steps back ago.
Bingo.
I love
that's
that.
the one.
I reckon that's gold.
Yeah. And that's what we're inadvertently doing.
I have a question for you. This just came to me.
I really hope that cat meow.
Yeah, I love that cat. Yeah.
That was like a perfect changing gears. Like in the next segment.
The cat. Okay, so if we're moving towards unity,
there's the cat.
And so if we're moving towards unity, what's the thing we'd be moving away from then? Would you say death?
Division.
Division. Okay, great. So if we've got division at one end, say that's on the left, unity's on the right.
Yeah.
And that's like the east and west. What would be the north and south?
Well, that would actually be the north and south.
Okay, and then what would be the east and west?
Yeah, okay. So like this. Depth. Height and depth is significance. So the higher you can go or the deeper you can go, which have a really correlate meaning, by the way. The higher you can go and the deeper you go will feel very, very significant and meaningful. So if someone has a deep experience or a high experience, it becomes meaningful to the individual. The left and right is kind of ubiquitous. So we're talking about things that are ubiquitous for a lot of people. And that is the more fundamental. So if it's ubiquitous, it's fundamental for humanity. But
that would be in the West.
I think fundamental, it would just be for everything. If it's ubiquitous across every person. So if we've got height and depth, we've got that axis would be significance to the individual, and the other axis would be the more fundamental. It would be for individuals.
I think I'm getting it.
So you just got 2 axes of if it's significant or is it fundamental. That's the axis. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So what are the 2 ends of the fundamental plane?
Fundamental would be ubiquitous. So how wide does it go, not deep? So just think width and depth as basic categorizations. The wider it goes in people, the more people it touches and the more people it resonates with, it's quite fundamental.
The more fundamental it is.
Yes. The more deep it is for the individual, the more significant it is for the individual.
Okay.
Yeah. Cool.
Very good. Very good. Getting it. So,
but if
Matthew,
yeah.
I was going to say, with this stuff, right? So this is astoundingly interesting, and we could talk here with like pipes in our hands and mouths for ages with a glass of red wine, and we could go hell for leather. How do you find teaching this to people? People make this actually even practical for themselves. Like, people could hear that and go, "Yes, I get that," and then the next thing they go back to eating lunch, having a cheese and Vegemite sandwich, and you know, like they're back to normal everyday sort of stuff. Do you find just planting seeds in people's minds about this stuff almost does its own job for them as they move forward? Or is it a more conscious thing people need to deploy, knowing that most change is unconscious, so even putting it into the conscious mind is kind of a waste of time?
Yeah.
Like, how does that all sort of sit with you?
Again,
and your clients?
there's... Again, I think this is, the next kind of stage of coaching and consulting will be aligning either the therapeutic interventions or the performance interventions that fit the level that the human being is at. So
he's talking about the sales game.
Don't get me started on that. Don't get me started on the sales game. But pretty much. So to answer the question, it would be, I think I'm very lucky in the fact that a lot of the clients I'm working with don't need to be told what to do. They've already established an identity. They've already established their way of, who they are is clear. The next stage is for them in their growth is going into a really self-organized, self-evident stage. So when people that I'm working with, when they stumble into this kind of stuff, and we work on developing their first-person experience, practicality is self-evident or immediate. So the practicality is it's either in them already and this is again purely by taking people into a bigger context of them, the self. Again, another kind of misstep is thinking that all we've got really in that stage is unfolding awareness. And if you unfold more awareness, more things in the world tend to show themselves. Now, those things in the world are already there. You haven't manifested anything. You haven't created something with your thoughts.
Yeah, good.
If you're a traveler walking along the road,
I love that, bro.
And you turn
that
a
needs
corner.
to be said so much more. Can you say that a whole lot more, please?
Okay, I will. Just for you, Steve. Yeah.
Thanks, bro.
Yeah. No worries. Yeah. So simply
it's so damn good though. Like we need to say that more. It's true.
You didn't manifest
you
anything.
Didn't manifest it. It was already there, and you just found it.
Yeah. That's it.
Stop it with the manifestation. You didn't do it.
Yeah.
Can we just finally all agree that isn't a thing?
And it's not a thing on every level. Yeah. It's kind of dangerous. It's super dangerous.
Okay.
Anyway,
I think I've settled down. I think I'm good.
Mate, I saw one of the best. I got to send you guys. There's this unreal video. It's an old school psychology office, and he's sitting there, and this old guy in this kind of like tattered suit, and he's it's got on the door $5 per appointment. I can solve your problem in 5 seconds, and if I can't, then you don't pay me the $5. And this this woman walks in, and she's all like nervous and scared. She's got her $5 note, and she like slides it across the table, and he goes, "So tell me your problems," and she's like, "Oh, look, I'm really just having a hard time with my boyfriend. He doesn't want to be together anymore, and I just can't stop. I can't stop contacting him. I don't know what to do." And he's like, "Yeah, this is a hard problem." And he turns around and he's like, "Well," she goes, "Well, what do I do?" And he puts his hand on the desk and he goes like this. "You ready? Stop it! Just stop doing it! Just stop it!" And she's like, all frazzled. He's getting louder and louder and louder. Just stop it!
Just stop. Just don't do it anymore.
Oh God, it's so good. It's gold. It's kind of like that just stop manifesting. Just don't do it.
What is your perception on that sort of world? I mean, sorry, I've cut you off. I went to put words in your mouth. I won't. Go ahead.
What like the kind of that kind
the concept of it, the idea of it. What do you think is so attractive by it, and what disproves it in your mind? Or not? I don't know if disproves even the word, which is why I didn't want to put words in your mouth.
Yeah. So it is partially correct, and that's the scary thing. but it's not partially correct in the way we want it to be correct. Here's how it's partially correct. If I truly believe that my little ego is powerful enough to bring things to me like a magnet, what people are sensing is not the truth that they are believing. So let me get into it. There is a real experience where you can think of something and you see it more. It's a real experience. But
that's just a physical brain thing.
Yeah, so from a rational point of view, it's just the law of salience. Whatever is meaningful to you, you will see. Right? So there's that. From a rational point of view, the partial truth is the law of salience says that if something is meaningful to me, I will see it. That's one way. But there's a cheekier way before that, and this is a more scary way, I suppose, is that someone who falls head over heels into this kind of that world, that very magic world. And you'll notice a lot of people that are into that are into fantasy and into magic and into all that kind of world. That just comes with the territory. What's happening is
cosplay.
Totally, dude. Totally.
They're at those conventions.
Yep, absolutely. What you've got is the complexity of that human being has not separated subject and object yet. They're still bound. They're still bound. So think about a tribal person who, like a voodoo doll. They're going to stab the voodoo doll and totally believe that they're injuring someone else because it's all subjective. All of it is a subject in that person's conception. Their internal and their external world have not differentiated yet. So they're in a deep exchange with their environment. Them and their environment feel like one thing. So if I'm hurting the tree, I'm hurting me. If I'm hurting the doll, I'm hurting them. So they don't know there's actually division between subject and object. Everything feels subjective. Now that level of being is still, we have to still pass through that as we grow up. But now it's like 5 years old. That's why you can see a 5-year-old doing that.
Yes, yes.
You can
realizing that you and me are not the same thing.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
or you can get a glass of water, a short, fat glass of water, and pour it in a tall glass, and it looks like more water, and they go, "Oh my god, it's so magic!" It's because they can't differentiate. So what's disheartening, I suppose, is when an adult person has not grown past that, is they still believe that their thoughts are creating objects to change when really they're changing the subject in their head. And because their external world is not deeply differentiated, it looks like to them their external world is truly changing. Yeah. So
the key here is to see both as separate.
Well, yeah. I mean, the key is to really when you're growing, we don't really truly know the growth process. Like, let me put that out there. We don't really know what's happening or how to. We can kind of get a slight handle on it. They are what's called they're pre-rational people that are in that world. A lot of them are pre-rational, so they can't really comprehend yet the world of rationality or reason. So jolting them with their mistakes is a really, really awesome growth catalyst for them. You're wrong. You're wrong. You're wrong. You're wrong. You're wrong. And here's why. You're wrong. And here's why. And it shakes them to their core until they actually start to see parts of the rational world. And they go, oh, right, I didn't create more money. I was just thinking it. And I believed it so much that I saw more money in my bank account. Yeah.
Got it.
So
fascinating.
Yeah, the way to actually grow someone at that stage is like, it's really rugged, but you just got to meet them with error over and over and over again. And it helps.
The scary thing, Nat, though, is that it sells.
Is that, what's that?
The scary thing, though, is how well it sells.
Yeah, because 70% of the population in the world is still pre-rational. You got a giant market of people out there clamoring for help in any which way it comes. And that doesn't come with the tagline of effort and responsibility and mechanics. It comes with ease.
Yes, quick and easy.
Got it. And that's because
Which
they're
we can
failing
all
to see
relate
the
to.
object.
Totally.
They're failing
Yeah.
to see the more objective parts of it,
Mm-hmm.
which
Yes,
is,
totally, Steve. You got it. You're right.
you know, actually growing takes
Oh, man.
systematical approaches to things that are objective. You know what I mean? Like I just
That's
had
right.
to disappear for a bit because my bladder was full.
That's
Couldn't
right.
manifest my bladder to empty, right? I actually had to do something.
Hey, that's right.
That's the bit that most people don't get. It's just
Well, like
you
here's
have to
where
put
it's
the
just
work in.
it's
You got to do
scary and
something as well.
dangerous. It's so scary and dangerous because I was with I was at an event in Sydney and I was staying with a woman and we were leaving the event. It's quite late at night. It was a classical development event, and she was walking and she was doing this action with her arm, like she was throwing like a net out in front of her, and she was literally saying, "I'm walking into my net of safety. I'm walking into my net of safety." Now she truly believed that this was going to stop violent people. Like that's just so terrifying. It's just no good, you know. It's just no good.
Yeah, it's the violent people exist, whether you got to throw that net of safety out or not.
That exactly.
Which goes back full circle to your first bit when you're talking about leadership. Like that's the practical answer to this is like giving people the ability to lead well. I think that seems to be the major gap, and that's been massively exposed. Like if we just take it to a deep level right now, like the biggest thing that I think has shown up is like, are you a good leader or are you a shit leader? Like it's going to pop up real quick in this environment, in organizations, in families, in neighborhoods, in countries. Like there needs to be real change there, you know? So how do we go about that? That seems to be the common problem, but nobody seems to be putting out real good answers to
you got to have the balls. You got to have the guts to turn around, let's just say to that person and go, hey, you're being an idiot, and stop it. Like, you know, you've got to, there is exactly.
So the $5, we need to get more of those $5 men out there. Just stop it. Yeah. Just, you come in, we'll fix your problems. Stop it.
But there's a real reluctance to plain, simple, boring. I think there's a real reluctance to that kind of way of life. But that plain, simple, effective call to arms kind of thing is, God, it's just there's so much there. There's so much there, but everyone's fancy or technical or, you know, whatever it is, status-driven things. When, God damn, like if you get your head around some good stuff and keep it simple, you're halfway home.
It's good advice. The simple things.
Bit of a funny question for you here. I remember having a conversation with you one day, and I don't know when it would have gone deep. Just would have been the case. I think it was the day you were around at my house in Budrum, maybe a few months back. And it was refreshing or relieving almost. I wouldn't say relieving, actually, more refreshing to hear what you suck at. Because I remember you were like, oh, yeah. You're like, oh, yeah, I get all this stuff. Like I can see the depths of the world and all of like that comes naturally. But I can't do my taxes. Or like, I can't remember what it was. Totally. It was like, yeah. So what are you finding on your journey in business has become like almost humorously difficult for you when this stuff comes so easy to you?
Yeah, where do you want me to start? I can't spell. Like, man, writing emails and stuff takes so long because it takes me so, like, it's painful. Like, it's so much. So that, all the financial side is super challenging. So challenging. Look, to be honest,
are you a good delegator? Are you a good outsourcer?
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. I really don't have a problem with that. Yep. I tell you what I really really struggle with is, like, I know this is what I do for my work, but man, I'm fucking suck at people. Like, there's the people I engage with are here, open, present. If it's not that, I'm like, well, what are we doing here? It's just, I find that really, really challenging. I'm not tolerant. I'm not a tolerant person, as much as I'd like to pretend to be. I suck at being tolerant. and I'd put holes in my tongue because I just want to fucking bite at people because they're idiots. Look, and I'm so bad at being tolerant of that.
Yeah. Do you find that something you just come to accept within yourself, or is it something that you're working on, or like how does that sort of?
I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
No,
yeah. Sorry, stupid question. I'll shut myself out.
No, I think it's one of those things where I'm so aware of it that you know what, like it doesn't matter what return am I going to get on this. I'd rather be not tolerant. I'd rather be not tolerant, say something stupid, have a laugh, and like forgive myself, than bite my tongue and try and be this all pure person. Like I'm the most unpure person ever. I'm just not into that. I think because everything can have its place. Everything can have its place.
Yeah. Why do you think people are afraid of that though? Because like everyone hearing that, surely there's part of them that goes, yes, another person that's happy to, and I say this, you're doing it resourcefully, because I think there's an unresourceful way of taking this approach, which is, I'm just who I am. I am who I am. You know what I mean? Like there's a very resourceful path, but you're obviously
totally
a responsible, resourceful man. Like you know the bits that you're really strong at, and you triple down on that and serve the world with that. But you're also okay with going, man, there's parts of me that just I suck at, and I'm not going to try and pretend to be someone. I'm not going to try to be pretending to be really good at this if I'm not. Like all of us, everyone listening part of them would be like, shit, yeah, another person that's okay with it. That means I can get a little bit better. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm okay to be me now. But why is everyone terrified to make the first move? Why is everyone afraid to go, you know what?
I think
this is
Steve,
the stuff that I love, man. Like I think it goes back to the pursuit of love. This is what I really love, and this is what I don't love, and I'm okay with both of that.
Yeah.
Why are we so afraid to say that? Why are we so afraid to go out on a limb like that?
It's a really good question, man. That's a really, really good question. Like it's what I think, and I probably can speak for a lot of people here, is it's all I could do was the thing I loved. I actually couldn't function as a human being if I was doing something that I didn't enjoy. I can't lie. Like it's written all over my face. All over my face. When I was at the previous company I was in, they were like, we would go to meetings, and this is it's a funny story. we had this client, and she was in a similar industry. She had quite a big business, but she was really suffering. She kind of built herself into the business a bit too much, and she was really in this kind of like woe is me kind of attitude, and like she had no reason to be there. She had so much going for her, and the meeting got so dry, bland, and heavy that I just did this audibly in front of everyone. I just went, oh, for fuck's sake! Like I'm so, and they're like, what? And they said, well, what's wrong? I'm like, I'm just not interested in any of this. Like, what are we doing? And everyone's like, oh, what do you mean? And it was clearly offensive. It was clearly out of line, but I can't not do that. It's damaging to my body if I hold that in. I was just like, oh, God. Like, someone do something interesting. And I think people just got used to me being like that.
I reckon it becomes a style. Like, it's actually valuable.
Yeah, in some weird way, yeah.
This is why I love it when Joe Rogan ever talks about, like, you know, he's calling himself the new jester of Spotify, but the fact that throughout history, a jester-like character was always so valuable in the community because they were the only person who was allowed to tell the truth without getting murdered for it, you know? And so if the king was fat, it'd be like, the king's fat. And then everyone would be like, ha, 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 yeah, we're all thinking it, but you're the only person who could say it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
that's exactly right. The jester is the only one that lives outside the hierarchy.
Yeah. So maybe we need to we need to be a bit more okay with the whole the jester part, because it's humorous as heck too. This is the other part that we forget. This is my bit that I suck at. Man, I fail to see the humor in so much stuff, but that is actually who I am. Like when it's the core of who I am.
Yeah,
this is why they call me Simps. Like Simple Imp, when you get him in a party and he's there just to have fun and talk truth and just get amongst it. Like let the facades come down.
Yeah.
I love it. But you can't do that in the real world because you get crucified. Like, literally. It's ridiculous. We need to stop it. We need to stop it.
Stop it.
Stop it.
Just stop.
So I what are we now? 2 weekends ago did a ayahuasca ceremony. You guys know what you guys know
I've heard of it.
Yeah.
How was it?
Sweet. Unreal. Rugged, really hard. Really, really, really hard. But you
throw up real bad and
no, I had a few purges, but not a lot. There were some people in there that were going for it. Absolutely going for it. And there's a sense of anticipation with those kind of things because it's ceremonial, it's long, it's hard. The shaman she did a great job of just, keeping everyone solid because you're in a teepee for 12 hours, with the fire in the middle and stuff like that. And there's a lot of chanting and, things like that. So
were you nervous going in?
This is kind of my story. Like, I think when people constrict, when they feel that human contraction, they really constrict into themselves. There's an area of kind of seriousness to that. And I don't know, for whatever reason, I was going into this ceremony and I was giggling and laughing and having a great old time. Like I had a great, great, great time. And that was kind of the biggest, and obviously the experience it's quite full on. But the biggest takeaway I had from all of it was that, man, it's just like a lot of this is fun. A lot of this is heaps and heaps of fun. And people have kind of really crazy fears, and that's the fear that keeps them not having fun and being jovial and joyful. But anything that happens, like people, you can handle it. Anything that happens, everyone will handle it, and you'll be able to handle it. And so to have that kind of element of fun come back in a really strong way was unreal. Was so unreal. So
that's awesome, man.
So freeing. Yeah, so freeing.
Do you feel quite refreshed since the 2 weeks?
Yeah.
Or has normality of like, I've started to not have as much fun again, or has it sort of carried on after the ceremony?
No, there's a few things that will never be the same.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, but it was really kind of interesting. Every single person in there, they had really specific kind of very personal, specific messages for them, the way they interpret it. I was getting like bombs of fundamental, really wide, ubiquitous, widespread meanings and messages.
Like really deep truths? Is that how you would describe it?
They felt like that. They felt like that. And I think, again, going back to what we were speaking about before, like depth can easily fall into the realm of serious, but it's not. That's what I kind of want to I really want to challenge the kind of thinking with that is deep equals serious. Deep equals hilarious. Like deep equals freedom. Deep equals a whole bunch.
You're gonna let Jordan Peterson know that for us,
mate. Isn't that right? Isn't that? And that is the sign, I think, for everyone to go, that guy has so much emotion sitting in him that it's so scary.
Locked up.
And he got really sick, which sucks. But
I hope he comes back. We need JP. We need JP right now. Like we really need him back.
I think he actually is back. I think he released his first thing like a week ago.
Cool. Good on him. And I hope he just goes a little easier on himself. Like he was doing mega tours, like ridiculous. Of course he's going to get unwell. Like he did like 180 super serious lectures in I don't know, 47 minutes. Like
where half the crowd loved him and half the crowd wanted to kill him.
You're pretty old, bro. Like just
all he was eating was beef and salt.
And, all you eat is steak. This isn't going to be sustainable, bro. Just chill.
All of a sudden, he came up to everyone one day. He's like, "Oh, I think I need to go to hospital." Like,
no
shit, mate. Like, come on, man.
Yeah. I think I miss salad. It's like,
yes,
bro.
When you travel around America, Steve, and all you want is just some vegetables. You want some veggies.
Get him some broccoli.
Same when I was in. Jesus. So that I'd like to kind of put that into the market that I'm in more, which is depth is not serious. It's
good.
It's delightful. There was a moment in that ceremony where, and because for whatever reason, the energy that moves through you in an experience like that feels very feminine. They call it the mother spirit, etc., but it feels very, very feminine. It feels very supporting, very loving, very very, very feminine. But at the same time, if you don't kind of take charge of that experience, this feminine energy can get quite chaotic and feel quite destructive too. But there was a moment in there where it kind of I got this visual of kind of like a Mary Poppins kind of like silhouette, and she was like curtsying, and she goes, and this is kind of a conversation that all unfolds into one big experience. She's like, oh, by the way, I'm man's conscience, not consciousness. I'm man's conscience. And you can go against me if you want, but there's a debt to repay. And it was just said in this like kind of Mary Poppins-esque way that I was like, that was hilarious. Like, sure, you can go out and go against your better judgment, but you'll just have to pay me back later. And I'm like, if you really sit with that, man, you could spend years contemplating that. Like, you really could. You really could.
But delivered in the Mary Poppins way, it's like,
delivered through Mary Poppins. I'm like,
you don't need to think about this much. It's like, it's done. Just
you get it, right?
You get it.
It's a cosmic joke. That's why I'm like really enjoying this whole cosmic joke of like the thing, whatever created us probably had a fucking ball doing it, and we're running around taking it so seriously.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, it's just
that's
humor. I really think it's one of the most critical parts of the human experience, and I hope it never disappears, because it's just so much of life is hilarious. So much of life.
Yep.
It's just the amount of animals. Like my daughter, I love her. Like Alyssa, she wants to be a gemologist and a zoologist at the same time. She just loves studying it. So she's always giving me books of like weird animals and stuff like that. And they're flipping hilarious that these things exist. We just, me and Liz, we're just pissing ourselves laughing, going, look at this thing. Like, what does it do? It's just, some scientist would want to rip that thing to bits and understand every little part. And, you got to see both, I think. And I think that's where a lot of enjoyment, that's where a lot of fulfillment comes, I think. It's the blend of
The Little Prince
art. I've watched the movie, the Netflix. It's on Netflix, isn't it, Matt? I think
it is.
Have you seen that cartoon series? It's like an adult cartoon. Not adult
brilliant.
cartoon, but like
I haven't seen any of it.
The book
it's pretty cool.
Is brilliant. Yeah.
I think there's a animation, like a cartoon animation of it. It looks great. I think I watched half of it.
Hey Matt.
Me.
Yo.
Yeah.
Did you see Binge is coming to is a thing, like Foxtel's latest thing. Have you heard of this?
Oh yeah, I get ads for it all the time.
The Sopranos on demand is a happening thing. The Wire.
Oh, have you seen The Wire?
That's all I got.
Oh, that's all you got?
Have you seen The Wire?
None of those things
I want to wake you up a little.
None of those things have been unavailable before.
Oh, right.
You can always go on iTunes and buy them.
Yeah, I know, but
you didn't manifest it, Darcy. It was already there.
Exactly.
Right.
You've just found it.
That's true. That's true.
So what are you lads working on?
Oh,
what are you guys working on at the moment?
We're
give me the inside of your world.
So COVID, the best thing since sliced bread for the business. I reckon it's literally put us probably 3 or 4 years ahead, maybe even more, Das. Like the trajectory so much further ahead than COVID, right? So before COVID, Das had his book of clients. I had my clients. I was traveling like a gazillion hours every week. Like I was flying all over the place. It was nuts. We're going to go to America, like for big opportunity in Chicago. It was all banging. COVID hit, stopped everything. My business, like 85% revenue turn off overnight. I was like, wow. But that freed up heaps of time, right? And then so Das, same sort of thing. We're like, man, okay, we've just literally massive blessing in disguise, like boom, chopped off right from the start. So then me and Das were just like, so what do we do now? And we were talking to you, Nat, around that time. Got the sales game virtual. Like that was the first probably moment.
God,
it was like maybe we could do this virtually. Oh, wait till we tell you about the updates, bro. It's epic.
Oh, God.
So we took the sales game and turned into a virtual platform. Nat, you were there for the first one. Killed it.
It's great time.
Hacking the Excel dashboard in the background. Real hackathon. It was great. But then we did the game plan daily webinars. So we did like 33 days in a row of webinars and built a community from scratch. And then we turned into game plan weekly. I repurposed the last 7 years of my consulting work into the playbook. We've been selling that as a digital product and then building people into the Champions League, which is like community, all heaps of the great courses.
Unreal.
Matt's been crushing it. So we've got this like nice little community going now that it's like, we just we purposely said to each other, like, how do we be the most value-driven, generous company in the world right now? So we're just giving away.
That shows. That
everything.
Easily shows.
We're just giving as much as we can. So yeah, it's been amazing.
Huge
but
props.
then, thanks, bro. And then, so yeah, Sales Game Virtual. We've found this platform where we can create our own map build out all the little rooms. It's like Zoom, but you can just double click into a room and see who's already there.
Yeah,
and you can so it's like a little virtual world. But then we're investing in into an app that will plug into it, which will take care of all the transactions for the chips, all of the tax, all of the whole dashboard. And so it's going to be like and leaderboard and everything. So it's fully integrated. So like the experience is going to be insane. Wow. So yeah, we've been just working on heaps of building, like just building stuff. We've got a new team member, Will. Will's jumped on board, and he's like our community manager. Who's like an old winner of the sales game. Yeah. Sorry to our podcast listeners. Most of this probably wouldn't make sense to you, but we're just having a chat with Nat.
No, it's good. Well, man, right at your question at the start, Steve, which is filling that sort of compressed time. Now I know why. That's all
right. Yeah, it's been a heap of building, but it's been a lot of fun. Like that's been the cool part as well. Because when you're in a place of where we can be generous and we can give, we're not even going in with an expected return. So it just means you can have fun. You can have fun with the process. Then
exactly.
We can talk about stuff that we want to talk about because we're like, there's.
Man, that's all I did. That's all I did since November last year. Was I just spoke about what I find really life-shatteringly interesting and fun.
Yes.
That's all I've done. Literally all I've done.
You've built a great business out of it.
Yeah, God knows how.
No, but I think there's a clue there. Like we're starting to sense it. We're starting to sense it as well. Like, here's the crazy thing.
My initial thoughts go. Yeah, go for it, Steve.
So here's the crazy part, right? So, my accountant, Power Tynan, shout out to Brad. He gave me the heads up real quick for this like Queensland government grant, which was for like investing into digital into your business, like for COVID stuff, up to 10 grand. And I was just like, we had already committed to building the technology, the app for the Sales Game Virtual. And so we're like, bang. So I just felt like, all right, let's apply for this thing. So I jumped in real quick, punched in all the details, put together all the stuff that they needed. And then bang, we got the approval. So like, so that pays for probably half of the full development. We're probably going to have to invest 25K to get the tech fully up to scratch. But it's just all falling into place. And I was talking to my wife, Anna, last night. I'm like, babe, none of this would have happened unless COVID hit. I promise you, none of this would have happened.
None of it would have needed to happen.
Playbook wouldn't exist. Community wouldn't have been formed. Webinars wouldn't have happened. Virtual wouldn't even been a thought. The whole, like, none of it. Will wouldn't have been it. Like, all of this beautiful stuff has happened through this.
Actually, this might be fun for the listeners. I had the pleasure of convening with these lads, which was basically, hey, there's this really crazy thing happening. Let's all jump on a call and brainstorm. And I can't remember which one of you said it, but someone said, no, we can't take the Sales Game Virtual. And then the other person goes, wait, why not?
Yeah, that's what I said.
And then we were like, yeah, actually, why not? And then within 30 seconds, Steve's like,
we had the idea for it.
Yeah. And it was on like Donkey Kong. It was really, really cool.
Yeah. That was, it's amazing what is, like you said before, Nat, like you'll handle it. It's amazing what humans do when their backs are up against the wall.
Yep, for sure. Like and just you don't really know how many resources you've got available to you, internal resources, I mean, until you really understand how much stress you can handle. Because think about it like this, right? Your body has been evolved through years, hundreds, thousands of years. Your body has evolved to get to this point right now. Your psyche has done the exact same thing, by the way. Exactly. Your psyche goes all the way back through time, all the way. you don't think that's not full of incredible resources sitting there? But if you're always focused outward, on the world around you, you feel like you're empty. You feel like you don't have any resources. But if you can sit oh man, it like if you
that's
sit
good, weird.
Yeah, right. Anyone listening to this, there's something you probably want to do. And if there's something you want to do, that means someone has already done it, because how do you know what you want to do? So someone has already done it. Therefore, that model sits in the world somewhere, and you can access it. And even on a non-really crazy level, if you ask a question, the only reason you can ask a question is because part of you already knows the answer. Otherwise, you can't formulate the question. So we have access to a whole bunch of resources that we don't know, and you'll normally only find them in a huge amounts of stress.
Interesting.
Hence why people pray when it's in the highs.
You've got it.
I need to tap into something high here. You know what I mean?
Yep, exactly.
But even that goes back to your nature point as well, because I love this bit. I was listening to Diff talk on JT's podcast, The Art of Inquiry.
I still need to listen to that. Sorry, JT.
Get in. There's some ripping episodes. Art of Inquiry. Shout out to JT. Great podcast. But he was interviewing Diff, and he was talking about sci-fi, fantasy, and that you get these authors and these people that tap into these whole other worlds where, there's cats with giraffe-like features and flying cows and, these fantastical worlds and whole different ecosystems. And Diff made this comment. He's like, yeah, but people don't realize that's out your window right now. When you really start to tap into nature and you start to look at how it all works, it is alien.
Oh my God.
It is alien. And even that can be used. Like I've been doing a lot of study of, Dr. Deming and Buckminster Fuller, and they often refer to nature as explanations because it's a different life force, right? It's another example of life that you can tap into for metaphor and meaning and pointing to different things. Like you're saying, whole different resources out there.
Completely different.
As an unseen world. It's pretty cool.
Yep. And it's free.
Yeah, it's free. It's so free.
Yeah, well, if anyone it doesn't take long. You sit. If you sit, you will see and close your eyes and kind of direct your attention in. You will see moving images and fantasies and your whole different worlds, and they're not random. It's the fact that every single person can do that means, in a weird way, it's kind of factual. It has its own version of facts. For example, this is again not me. This was a client insight. A client insight said, we were talking about dreams, because dreams, you can kind of sum dreams up as the earliest form of thought. They're kind of unorganized early forms of thought, really random, chaotic, kind of archetypal in nature. And when have you really ever had a dream where you're doing something normal? I've had a dream that one day I went to the fridge and made a sandwich and then ate the sandwich and then I woke up. No. You're always doing something dark or weird or taboo.
Super random. Yeah.
Right? You're never doing something normal. So this is, again, a client insight. He turns around and goes, I feel like dreams are probably the most real, true part of me. I'm like, mate, you are onto something there. You are really onto something there. Because they're never normal, right? So they have a version of truth that's really true, but it's just not literal; it's symbolic.
So you're saying I could manifest something as long as it's in my dreams? Got it. I think I get what you're saying. Sweet. All right. Yeah.
Got it. Excellent.
Final thoughts, Steve.
I am curious about something. Nat, how do you just get up and do the normal, boring, mundane now, though? Like, you still have bills to pay.
How do you live through Tuesdays?
Yeah, like we still have bills to pay. This has been great. I love it. I love getting lost in these worlds. But the fun part is then you go, okay, we take off our headphones and we now get back into the making of money and the sweeping of dust and the mowing of lawns and the
totally.
So how do you organize all of that? Do you separate those? Like, I'd love to leave on those final thoughts for us to now transcend back into the normal world, so to speak.
Yeah, I want to really, really encourage people to not go back. There's no reason why you can't. There's no reason why you can't mow a lawn and contemplate the grass or the machinery of the lawnmower, or contemplate mastery while you're doing that and go, how do I make this lawn the best thing I've ever done?
Mm-hmm.
A contemplative life is a really, really, for me, I've lived a really contemplative life, and I think I don't know why, but I just bring contemplation to basically everything I'm doing. And so yeah, for me, they don't feel separate. It feels like one continuous stream of things, because I don't really feel like I'm doing anything new. I feel like I'm just seeing what's already there, available for everyone. Like, really is available for everyone.
That's super helpful to me, bro, because I think I sometimes fall into that where I'm like, I love getting lost in these worlds. This is when I feel most alive. Like when people talk to me, my idea of heaven, it's like hanging out with people that I love, talking about stuff. Like I love it. I almost love it more than anything else. I think if there's like a golf club in the hand and a bit of competition, and maybe a beer and a meal at the end too. Like that's pretty close to heaven, right?
That's it.
But I think then, okay, now I have to go back to real life. But maybe you don't have to. That's what you're kind of suggesting. Maybe you don't have to go back. Maybe you just then, like you said, contemplate as you do the normal, as you go back through. It doesn't have to be a turn on, turn off experience.
Well, what you've just said really well, Steve, is I think what a lot of people do is they'll feel the self contraction, right? You'll close down the call and you'll feel the self come back. It'll lock in and go, oh, well, that was fun, but you got to go back and do those other things now. And that self-contraction stops your development. That I'm trying to be more human than what I actually am. Why do we get so much pleasure out of talking about this stuff? Why do we get so much joy? Why has it been 2 hours and it feels like 2 minutes?
Yeah.
Right. And it's not a small thing. There's something to that. Why would you ever leave it? Well, because there's a rule that says we have to go back and do something else. I'm not buying that for a second. I'm also not buying the self-contraction after and going, well, no, now I've got to be this relative thing that's got to live for a few years and do that. I'm not buying that for a second at all.
Does that encourage or link to escapism?
Well, I think when you look at it that way, it's like you got to look at the self as not just you, but the way you exchange with your environment. So if you're hurting people, if you're not looking after your responsibilities, if you're avoiding things, then then you're only arresting your development with the things you're not approaching in the real world anyway. So that's the kind of like go back to go forward kind of thing. But you'll get that kind of ping pong. It'll feel really heightened when you're doing something you love, and you'll feel the dread of the self-contraction come back when you need to go, do whatever you need to do. But yeah, you don't. That self-contraction is the thing, which is kind of like go for it.
I don't think we tap into that resentment enough, and what I mean by that is resourcefully tapping into that resentment. I think like. There's a whole part of life which is suffering. Like that just seems to be a clear through line, as in like you can define suffering in a number of ways, but you're up against limitations from the moment you start to the moment you end. Like that's a form of suffering. There's resistance in everything you do all of the time, and it's always there. Like gravity is an example of this. Like there's something holding you down and forcing you all the time, right? So life is suffering. But the other thing is with the whole like escapism thing where you try and like disappear from life, but maybe you don't. I'm losing my thoughts as I'm going here, but it'll come back. Why is it then that there seems to be a practical nature to being just a real life person as well? Like there's part of me that's scared to go all in because there's sometimes that I don't need to be super like connected. I just need to put the trash in the bin. Like, and that's
unreal.
what I need to do. You know what I mean? Like sometimes I ruin myself from going too far. So why am I scared to go all in?
Okay, so there's a real fear in a lot of people of going mad. You know, when you get right down to the bottom of it, scared of a few things, scared of dying, scared of being alone, scared of going mad. And this is what this is what the sages have been saying forever, is limitation, Steve. Limitation is the point. That is the point. Think about this. Darcy is not Darcy because he's amazing at certain things. Darcy is Darcy because of his specific set of limitations. If Darcy wasn't limited in the way he is, he wouldn't be Darcy. Your partner, your loved ones, the reason why we love them is because of their limitation. If you take away their limitations, they're not them anymore. Right? So people try to define people's borders by their good traits and qualities. Incorrect. Define them by their limitation. That's why you love them. That's why you are who you are. That's why we're here, is to be limited. If we weren't limited, then nothing would exist. So that whole taking out the trash thing is when you go far enough, you chase the rabbit all the way down the hole and you end up right back here. And you go, ha ha, the cosmic joke wins again. Yes. It's right here. It's right here. I don't need to do anything or say anything or be anything. I don't need to contemplate my life away. The spirit in action everywhere I look. The creation of the cup is spirit in action. Our conversation is spirit in action. And it all unfolds into one and you go, aha, right.
Yeah.
I'm here.
Yep.
I didn't have to go anywhere and I'm here. It's exactly the same as the concept of the Big Bang. The Big Bang existed outside of time, so you can't trace history to find it because it's existed outside of time. So if you chase that all the way back to find the Big Bang, you realize that it's right here. You chase it all the way back to now. And that's what people are scared of. People are scared of losing that. You're like, you won't. It'll just deepen and enliven, and every second will be it.
So good. I love that. I think that's the perfect point to wrap up this particular episode. I know there's going to be many more. Really appreciate you coming on again, bro. It's always a good time just hanging out and chatting with you.
So good.
Thank you, man. This is a treat.
Where can people find, are you taking on any clients at the moment? Are you booked right out? Where can people find out more about if they're kind of gelling with what you're talking about?
Yeah, best way just email directly, nathaniel@outliers.consulting. Website's probably about 3 weeks away. It's just awesome. It's got some nice stuff and it's got some videos and some other things in there. It's my book will be coming out probably in about a month.
Sick.
Edited. Yeah, it's a bunch of fun. It's not anything too crazy. It's just some client stories and personal stories of transformation. So I didn't want to do some like crazy kind of thing. I just wanted to make something nice and readable. 8 chapters, bro. 8 themes, all about transformation. And it's kind of got a bit of a unique spin on it. So they're not typical transformative kind of avenues.
Awesome.
Awesome.
What's the name of the book? Have you got a title? You got a title yet?
Yeah, it's called Phoenix.
Phoenix.
Love it.
Yeah.
If people are interested in that, send us an email and we'll pass their name straight on to you to get them a book if you'd like and get that organised. Yeah, send us an email if people are interested in that for sure.
Love it.
You ripper. Thank you, Nat.
No, all good. That was fun.
Let's do it again soon.
That human contraction, I've got to go to the dentist in 10 minutes. So.
Humans win again.
Exactly.
Have fun, mate.
See you later.
Cheers.